Happy Friday, newsies. It is I, Becca Lori Hector, here with Neurodiversity Newsstand. Here we are on Friday. We made it through another week into February. Exciting. We have had nothing but snow here. Oh, I'm a little off center. Sorry, guys. Pardon. Should have looked at that before I started. Anyway, it's been snowing here in Colorado for up in the mountains for a couple days now. So we had like a little break, but it has been snowing. It started snowing last night and it is still snowing now, and it's something like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's been snowing for like over 12 hours straight, and it is beautiful outside and quiet and everything, and I'm loving it. But of course I'm really short, and so walking around in really deep snow is slightly challenging, and it wasn't challenging until this last snow that came through, and I was watching the dogs walk out in it, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna struggle as a short person now, and so I'm struggling a little bit about there, and it's still snowing, so we'll see. We should get some crazy kind of amounts build up from this, because we're supposed to have almost a week straight of snow, so I'll update you on that. Oh, and talking about updates, I wanted to share with you guys about the barn cats. So we did get them all over here. They have our crawl space under the house, which is about 2 foot deep, so I can almost stand in it, sort of, maybe 3 feet deep. And it's nice and toasty down there. The house keeps it all warm and it's all protected, so it's like cat haven down there. And they have nice and toasty places to sleep, lots of beds, and so they've been fine. And I haven't really had anything to share with you guys because we've basically just been going down every day at 5 o'clock and giving them some wet food and not seeing them. We really actually haven't seen them since they got here. We've seen our lights go off a couple of times, the motion sensors, and we were hearing the mama cat. Well, yesterday, you guys, what? Yesterday, I went down there to do the feed at 5 o'clock, and mama cat was waiting for me, and she meowed at me, and she ate while I was sitting there, and then she came over for pets. Oh, it was so special. She was so excited to be pet, and she was so purry and everything. And then I got a peek of one of her babies, which aren't babies. They're all full-grown cats. They just were never separated from mom, which is why we kept them together. And so I've seen others now. I've seen her, and so I'm excited to go down tonight and feed them, because I'm excited to get to pet her and kind of share that she's happy and comfortable down there. And I've been spending this last few weeks just wondering and waiting for her to come out, or just to be able to see her or whatever. So that's cool. That's a cool barn cat update for you guys. And what else? I don't know. I've been so uninspired, and I want to say bored of our community. You'll see even the news this week. We brought back a lot of old articles, became popular because there was just such nothingness happening out there. And so, I don't know, I guess it's a lot of the infighting is starting to take its toll on a lot of us, and I don't know, there's a lot of advocates attacking other advocates. It's just a mess in our community, and you want to know what? I find it uninspiring. I'm not energized by it. I don't want to keep fighting for our community because of it. I don't want to walk away defeated, but I also don't really want to participate right now. And I'm finding that I'm looking through my Facebook and looking through Twitter and looking through my Instagram. Part of it is my job, and part of it I do for fun because that's where my friends are and all of that jazz. But I gotta say, I'm just going blip, 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 blip. You're boring. Oh, yeah, you're boring. So if you watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine, there's a Brooklyn Nine-Nine reference for you. TV and movies are my favorite special interest. They've been almost as long as cats have been. So I tend to do that, randomly throw movie quotes or TV quotes in there. But yeah, you're boring. I'm really bored by what's out there. I'm uninspired, which is making it difficult to try to want to write for the community and to try to want to kind of keep sharing my vulnerable self with this community. So I'm trying to find my little bubble of you, and maybe it's just the 188 of you that are subscribed to this channel that are my people, and hopefully we'll get and there will be more of you eventually, but I don't want to chase it, and I don't want to be part of that fame game that's suddenly become, I don't know, part of autistic advocacy. It's maybe it's just part of our culture now, I don't know, but I'm disinterested in that, and I find it just exhausting rather than energizing. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with the community. So, I don't know, share with me how you're feeling about the community. Are you bored? Are you I don't know, in it? Are you excited about what's going on? Does it make you want to keep advocating or keep being part of the community? I don't know. Just share with me how you're feeling, because I think it can be really isolating and lonely for me. I do a lot of my work online. I certainly don't go out and people in the world. And so when my community online feels so toxic, I get sad too. So I'm curious how you guys are feeling. It would be nice to know I'm not alone. Yeah. So I guess that's about it for, kind of check in and catch up with us that I usually do in the beginning. We might as well get to the news, and I gotta tell you, it's nothing exciting. We had a few good articles. As usual, we have good blogs come out from our people, but we're not seeing any kind of real groundbreaking stuff. I know here in the States we're hearing a lot about, it's an election year coming up for us, and so they're just like spouting their garbage at us all the time. And please, I don't talk politics. I don't want to talk about politics, but what I do want to share with you guys is how depressing I find it and why I don't participate, because it makes me feel unempowered. It makes me feel really powerless and angry and a lot of negative feelings. And so since I know there's not anything I can actively do on a daily basis to change that, I find it difficult to immerse myself in those conversations. So I don't. I used to be a big player in those games and talk about that stuff all the time, highly intellectual, but I don't like it anymore, and so I don't want to do it. I don't want to use my spoons for it. But disability is a big topic in our election this year, and we are seeing lots of articles, but they're not really articles. They're really kind of just, I don't know, what's the word, propaganda, I guess, really. So I didn't want to really share. I'm not really allowing them to be shared in the group, and I'm not really talking about it because it's not actual fact. It's just mudslinging and such. And so I don't want to share that stuff. I'm just giving you a heads up on that, why we're not talking about it on Newsstand until there's something to talk about. But let's talk about what is going on. Let's talk about what is happening. That's good. So we've got out of Cleveland, cleveland.com, we had this nice little article called KeyBank Workers with Autism Excel Through New Program That is a Model for Others. So this bank in Cleveland has started to incorporate neurodiversity in their hiring platform, and they are bringing together a new hiring program and hopefully, using that as an example for other banks. So that was a great little article. If you're from Ohio, shout out to Ohio for that little piece there. And next, this was actually a really good one. This was probably the highlight in terms of articles for the week. And ironically, it came out of Spectrum News. So it was called How Abuse Mars the Lives of Autistic People. And that was by Emily Son in Spectrum News. And it was all about the trauma, like the abuse and the trauma that we as autistics, whether we're identified or not, really, whether we're diagnosed or not, what we have to deal with when we go out in the world, and what that kind of, when you start to kind of carry with you all of that trauma, what it can be like. And it's because most of us don't get a break. And so the author is talking a lot about how, about the triad of trauma, about how there's not just one thing that's traumatizing for autistics. It's not just socializing out in the world or being in public, that it happens for us at home. There's neglect at home for our needs. And then there's the set of, she calls it the abuse from trusted adults, which is essentially saying, you have the adults in your life that you either look up to or go to for advice, or who tell you that they're there to help you, and then they don't follow through with that, or they kind of, I don't know, they just turn around on you, and it's not quite the same. So there's that abuse and that trauma from that that goes on continually. And then, of course, we know the trauma of bullying in school, and unfortunately it really still occurs in the workplace a lot. I actually haven't had the opportunity to work in a workplace where there wasn't bullying, which is shameful, but that is the truth. And so it is active and alive in our schools, but also in our workplaces. So obviously the parents are teaching their children how to be like them. But yes, it is, we carry that package of trauma with us everywhere, and the more years of trauma you have, the more times in your life you see trauma coming. You start to see those trauma patterns. You start to see toxic behaviors in people and their warning signs, and kind of how, whether or not you trust your gut about that or stop hearing that, is a really important piece of kind of the trauma of growing up autistic in this world today. So that was a really good piece. I recommend reading it. Of course, that piece and any piece I talk about here in Neurodiversity Newsstand will be in the description. Okay, moving on. Oh yeah, so this is where I want to talk about it. So again, that was like really it for news, like new news, true news. But we had a couple of articles come back around because there was no news, and actually they got some new life breathed into them, and so more people were sharing them. So I want to share the older article. I call them oldies but hot. That's what I wrote on my piece of paper. So these are the oldies but hot articles that came out this week, or that were being reshared this week. Let's call it what it is. So we had another piece in Spectrum called How Social Touch Shapes Autism Traits. That was from 2017, and it talks about how especially with sensory issues, the autistic experience of touch and what neurotypicals deem to be casual social touch, like reaching out to touch your hand or tapping you on the back or hugging you when they first see you, that can be really traumatic for us. It can be often painful for us. And because it's socially acceptable and we're sort of forced to do it, we become the odd man out when we say that hurts me or I don't like that or please don't do that. We're looked at as the bad guys. And so I really liked this piece. I thought it was super interesting, and the negative emotions that we learn to carry with us because of trust. He talks about that. Really nice piece. So take a look at that one too. I'll put it in the description. Next up was another oldie but goodie. It was from thebodyisnotanapology.com, and it was called Independence is an Ableist Myth. And I want to share with you guys, this is the biggest truth I think I can ever share with you guys, is that independence is an ableist myth. We are constantly being told as disabled people that we should be independent, we should be independent, we should be independent. And then we begin to put that pressure on ourselves of needing to be perfect and independent and not needing other people's help. When if you really look at how the world works, nobody does anything alone. Everybody, disabled or not, has help. And that's a fact, right? You know, how many of us do our own taxes and how many of us go to an accountant to have our taxes done? And that's just one example, right? And so that's what this piece is about, and it talks about that piece. It's from 2018, so take a look at that. If it's something that you haven't given some thought about, I would definitely read it to understand kind of how society can so skew our own experiences of life and such, I guess. Yeah, so that came out. And so those were the big oldies but hot. They came back and we were talking in our groups about them. So interesting topics to talk about. I say if you find them interesting, write a new piece, because these guys are old and people are still interested in these topics. So go for it. Next up, we're ready for blogs from our community. Folks that we love to see write and be and do are sharing their experiences, being vulnerable with us and being generous with that. And so we begin in Spectrum Women. It's actually also a reshared piece from last spring, but I really liked seeing it get more traction. I think, it came out in April of last year, and we're inundated with so much in April. It's just ridiculous. So I always find when I go back to an April piece, I realize that I might not have seen it at all because we're just so inundated. So this April piece was by Lisa Morgan, and I reread it. I remember reading it the first time, but the second time around, I was much more clear-headed and not inundated by Autism April. So take a look. Can all people be a little autistic? So Lisa tackles that myth and why it's not true, and kind of that perspective of kind of looking at the a little autistic myth. And so I really liked it. I think you guys will all enjoy it, and so that'll be in the description. Next up, in a podcast, we had Autism Grown Up Podcast came out with this week, just made it into Newsstand for this week, actually. Autism Grown Up Podcast, right. It was called # Black Autistic Pride and Self-Advocacy Online. So this episode of their podcast was an interview with Kayla Smith. So if you don't know Kayla, Google her. She's a fantastic advocate for autism, and she does this great interview on autism growing up, talking about intersectionality, right? So being not just autistic, but also being Black and whatever else intersectionality she may have or we may have, right? That's what the word means. Such an itchy nose right now. And then, she talks about some of the challenges that vocal advocates face. So some of the challenges that being vocal about your advocacy can be challenging. and how it can add to kind of the stress of your life, even though we choose it. So I would take a look at Kayla's interview. Fantastic. Really enjoyed it. Love to see her out there. Yes. And speaking of out there and sharing, another piece coming from Christa Holmans. This time she's sharing it on ERE Media, which is a recruiter's website, and she is a human resources person when she's not advocating. And so she has written a piece for this group with some of the people that she works with, and it says, let's start again, Christa. Sorry about that. Did not mean to do that. So her piece is called An Autistic Hiring Manager Explains Neurodiverse Hiring. So Christa, as someone who is neurodivergent and a hiring manager, she talks about some of the practices that can be put in place and some of the mistakes that are made and that kind of stuff. Really great piece. If you want to share it with your employer, I say go for it. Really good one from Christa. So thank you for that one, Christa. Next is a webinar. Barb Cook, she is doing another webinar coming out on the 12th of February. So just in a few days, actually 5 days, I guess. The 12th of February at 6 p.m. Brisbane, Australia time. You'll have to do the math from there. And it is called Being the Executive of Functioning. So she's talking about how to harness the power of your brain for $40 for 90 minutes online. You can catch it, and I believe if you purchase a registration to it, even if you don't get to watch it live, you still get a recording of it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Babs, in the comments, but that's what's going on. So that's on February 12th. And that's it for everybody else. I know it's like a short episode because, I mean, we just wasn't out there this week, unless I missed it. So if I missed it, please let me know. Anything I talked about will be in the description. But if I missed something that you're like, hey man, Beck, where were you? What was that? You didn't see that article? And I especially say this to my LinkedIn members because our group is kind of different. The pacing is different. We don't talk quite as much. So if you think that I missed an article in our group that I'm not sharing here, please let me know. And also, you know, if you like what I'm doing, let me know that too. Before I go, I will let you know what's up for me. So this week, I am proud to say that I had a podcast interview come out that I had so much fun doing. It was a really easy interview in terms of it wasn't work, right? It didn't feel like, you know, here's a question, answer a question. And like I was talking to someone who didn't understand what I was trying to express. And so it was really comfortable and I enjoyed it. And I hope you can tell in the interview. It was for Not Weird, Just Autistic, the podcast. JR and Shannon, JR and Shannon host that. And they've had a whole bunch of us on. They just had Christa on. They just had Haley Moss on. And I'm proud to have been invited and on. And so this week that podcast came out and you can take a listen to it. I'll leave the link for it in the description for you guys. And what else? Last week I had another interview come out. It was on the YouTube show Bridge the Gap with Jessica, and Jessica and I did an interview on that as well. If you'd rather see a video interview with me, I will leave you that link. And then I guess lastly, you know, tell me what's up, you guys. Talk to me in the comments. I appreciate your thumbs up. It's still the 9 of us hanging out in thumbs up land. I'm happy to say I'm not really getting thumbs down, which says at least I'm not doing a crap job doing this. But I do like knowing from you guys. I like hearing whether you like what I'm talking about, whether I missed something, whether there's something of yours you want me to share, whatever that may be. Please go ahead and get in touch with me. You can always comment in the comments of anything that I share, but of course when I share these videos I'd love to hear from you. And what else? Oh, I know what I can share with you guys that we didn't yet talk about. So again, for those of you that stick around for the end of the video secrets, this week's not so secret is that Becca's Backyard is back. So I used to do Becca's Backyard. You can go back to the playlist. If you're on the YouTube channel, I have a playlist of all of those there for you. So I used to do Becca's Backyard, and I would every Sunday kind of go outside in my backyard, and I was living in a different place then, and just kind of share where I'm at, more of the stuff that I do at the beginning of these videos. And kind of, I'd like to be answering, you know, get get more personal on those. I would like to be more vulnerable on that. And that's going to be on Tuesdays. And I'm always doing them live. So I'm now going to be live streaming on YouTube every Tuesday. Right now, I have chosen 1:20 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So you can do your own math. If you don't catch me live, it always gets recorded. It gets put up on the channel. That's fine. But if you do want to catch me live so you can talk to me in the moment, please hang out with me on Tuesdays when I do Becca's Backyard. If you have an idea for Becca's Backyard, if you want to hear my diagnosis story, if you want to know what therapy was like, if you want to know what it's like to live unmasked, if you want to know, whatever it is that you want to hear me talk more about from a really personal place, I'd be happy to do so on Tuesdays. So you can send me those questions and suggestions at info@beccalaurie.com. And I guess that's it. If you are not subscribed to the channel, take a moment and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so whenever my videos come out, you know. That's about it for me, you guys. Have an amazing weekend. I am going to take, I hope, a mazillion snow pictures this weekend with the dogs in the snow and me in the snow, and I'll try and post some of them. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, please do, because I try and throw some pictures up there whenever I can. All right, guys. That's it from moi. As you can see, I'm headed off to do my monthly Spectrum Women video in my Spectrum Women hoodie. So I'm going to go do that. And then I'm off to just enjoy the snow. Really, just enjoy it. Because it's one of my favorite things, like, ever. So I'm going to go do that. Share with me whatever you guys do this weekend. Touch base with me. I like hearing from you. And I will see you on Tuesday at Becca's Backyard Live, 1:20 p.m. MST. The live stream is up now. You can set yourself a reminder. Bye, guys. Have an amazing weekend.